Hey Ryan, I wanted to leave you some feedback on essay one. As a whole, I think this is working really well. You have a good progression of ideas, so your chronological order works really well. In addition, there are some really good, powerful sentences in this draft that as your reader, I was like, "Oh man, yeah, that is a statement, right?" You just I don't know, it's kind of like getting like a punch to the gut, I suppose. And hopefully as I scroll through this, I can find examples of that. So, I sorry, I'm pausing because I'm thinking here. Oh no, maybe I'm looking for those sentences, like I said, that I wanted to point out to you. Oh, hopefully as I scroll through, I'll remember where they are. Um, oh yeah, here's an example of one. I like this, and I like this as well. Um, although I kind of, I mean, it's your story, so I can't argue with you, right? Because I am not in your shoes by any means, but I would argue that, you definitely had an advocate. You definitely had someone who was trying to understand you based on this sentence right here. Um, so here's something that I want you to think about. The progression of your ideas are working quite well, and even though your paragraphs are, in some moments, they're not very long, you have a really good sense of when to transition to a new paragraph. So that's good. Here's something that I want you to think about in these like pivotal moments in your draft, like particularly this one. Consider not simply relying on summary, but instead drawing these details out with dialogue or description, right? So this seems like it's a really pivotal moment for you, since most of your essay is about finding your voice in more ways than one. So I think that this is a really pivotal moment. Same here, same thing when you begin to bond um, with uh, your teammates. um, I think going through here and reading for the moments where you really need to draw out. Here's a really good example. Maybe give, if you can't remember exactly what you said, so you can't use dialogue here, but maybe the general topic of what you talked about, right? So you know what was likely going on. You guys were likely having a conversation about specific plays, or what one of you needed to do or several of you needed to do in order to help the other person out, right? So drawing out these details would be really helpful, right? So it forced you to be social. It taught you the importance of brotherhood. This is a really good example. But we need the more concrete details to show how you got there, right? So that would be a really good example to draw out on. The second thing that I want you to focus on is this moment, this absolutely mortifying moment for you in your American history class, because this is also reinforcing that idea of brotherhood and voice. So first off, you felt like an outsider in high school, and you felt even more like an outsider in this classroom on this specific day. But to make matters worse, your friend wasn't there, right? That idea of brotherhood and camaraderie. Perhaps I think what's suggested is perhaps this like absolutely mortifying moment would have been a little bit more palatable had you had community in that room, but you didn't, right? Because your friend just so happened to be absent that day. And then you have this excellent, yes, that's the other description that I was looking for, and that you are talking about the tension in the room. I think the reader can really feel it. And I love this description, this descriptive sentence right here. And then you have like this really like just so unaware question posed by the teacher. But here's the moment that the reader really wants to hear you talk more about. So obviously it's a total misstep on the teacher's part, right? Because you're like, well, how can you ask that question, right? Yeah, and then this idea here too, that yeah, he was sick, but there was a specific reason why he didn't show up. So think about how you really need to enforce voice, and maybe that idea of camaraderie as well. So the reader really wants to know that you said my ears were melting from embarrassment. If you're willing to, I would explore that idea more and for sake of the narrative. So draw out why and draw out that teacher's missteps, and also consider, what did you do with voice at this moment? Did you say anything? Right? Are you okay with not saying anything? Should you have said something? Right? And I'm not judging what you did or you didn't do, right? In terms of the narrative, it's thinking about how you can continue to reinforce that theme. And maybe here's something. Did the teacher put you in a position where you felt like you had to remain silent, right? That's perhaps another way to think about it. So there's just some moments here and there that are worth drawing out. One other thing in terms of editing, do your best to avoid contractions in professional writing. They're just considered too informal. So instead of saying my friend hasn't, you want to say my friend, and really I think what you want to say didn't. My friend did not. We knew that I can't talk. We knew that it would, is what you want to say here. I didn't see my friend. I did not see my friend, right? So you just want to avoid contractions if possible. So as I said before, Ryan, overall, I think that this is a really good narrative in terms of you being able to capture good detail, those really powerful sentences that you have in here, and your good sense of pacing. I think it's just thinking about expanding those moments that are really pivotal, to the discussion. All right, let me know if you have any questions about this.